Hey, peace world. Thanks for pressing play on another Pay Me No Mind sports and entertainment video. My name is Wood. I'm gonna jump right to it. It's a lot of this story is some people aren't gonna dig the subject matter. Hopefully, the title of the video indicates what I'm getting at. And usually, I would put this up on my podcast, my audio only podcast. It's always personal that can be found on Google Podcast as well as Spotify. It's always personal, but it's a lot going on, man, and especially along the racial lines, and some things have to be addressed, and so there's a story up on Sporting News about Rupp Arena and a push to change the name of Rupp Arena because of the racist reputation of Adolph Rupp. We'll get there in just a second with that. We also saw. Oh, there was also a really interesting article on ESPN about Iowa football coach Kirk Ferentz, I believe is his name, and just a very lengthy article and a deep history about black players going through Iowa through the football program and feeling just feeling some kind of way. And this stuff is complicated, man. It is. I get it. And that's what's kind of pissed me off when I was talking about the Redskins thing a couple of weeks ago, because people want to apply these very simple fixes to very complicated stuff, or just really give no thought to nothing. And then you have the crowd that don't talk about anything racial. It wouldn't be anything racial if you didn't talk about it. Nah, that's not really how it works. And but anyway, so I'm gonna open up with. I had a talk. Yeah, it's been some strong stuff popping up on my Facebook timeline or feed lately, with some different co-workers from my past who are. I can tell they're frustrated, and they've chosen to speak out on some things and very strong memes and articles from far right websites, and I don't think they realize how offensive it is to me and to people who look like me, but okay. But I just hit a point yesterday, but I started seeing other people who I thought were more informed or more fair-minded, and I start to see them hitting the like button on, it's other coworkers who are hitting the like button and liking some of these memes and some of these points. And now I'm looking at a bunch of people instead of just this one person, like, what the hell is wrong with you? Or do you even know what you're talking about? For instance, there's one about something about if black history is important, well, how is my history not important? And it's basically supporting the Confederate flag and why people should be able to rock with the Confederate flag. And a partner of mine, a good friend, a work friend, older gentleman, he didn't click on that one, but he liked another one that kind of had the same flawed thinking. And so anyway, I had to go to my man on the side, very respectfully. This man he might be in his early 70s. He retired a few years ago. And he moved out of the state, and I don't see him anymore. But, he made a statement about the national anthem, and it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. After he saw the WNBA do what they did, walking off the court for the anthem. And so I asked him, what would you say I do, or how would you say I look at the national anthem knowing about the third verse of the national anthem? And, I said, we're in a day and time when all of us, most of us, can read and write. Here I am, I have my college background. I've been working for years. U.S. Naval vet. And how could you expect me to know what I know and have the level of intelligence, whether you think it's high or low, that I have? And what do you think I do with this song? What would you do with the song if the shoe was on the other foot? For those of you who may not know, there's a verse in there where it says, from no refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave. And my friend came back to me and said, you know what, man? I had no idea. He said he's a history buff, and he said he had no idea that there was even a third verse to the song. He said his wife was a music major, and he talked it over with her. She wasn't even aware that it was a third verse to the song. And I said, fair enough. We already established something right there. Fair enough. But I said, see, I'm thinking to myself, you made your strong comment about these women, most of them black women, I'm assuming. I didn't see who it was, but here it is. You're all up in arms and up in an uproar about them walking off of the floor. But you didn't even know that this verse in the song is part of the motivation behind them handling it the way that they did. Now, I'm not trying to tell you that you should accept it, but you clearly didn't know all of the details behind their decision. We talked it out and did what we did with it. He still said it was offensive, and I said that's cool. You can feel that way. I said, but again, and that's where we are right now with all of us knowing what we know, and there not being any leadership on none of this stuff. And I'm getting ready to get into this Adolph Rupp situation, but we just out here to our own devices, and stuff is kind of crazy. But anyway, so looking at this Sporting News article by Mike Decourcy, Adolph Rupp, the famous legendary coach at the university, he was the all-time winningest coach until Dean Smith took him over. Now I think somebody might, Coach K, did he beat Dean Smith already? I don't know. But Rupp was in place from 1930 to 1972. His name is on the arena. And now in everything that's going on, this professor at UK, who's a part of the African American and Africana stories, he approached the faculty with 10 suggestions submitted to improve race relations and the experience for African Americans on campus. Now, if you read that Iowa football piece, you will see how these the black football players, they felt alienated, and Iowa had to get rid of this longtime strength and conditioning coach because his behavior and his comments just became unacceptable. And now Ferentz is holding on to his job, but all of this stuff is out there, and it's kind of just it's just emblematic of what I'm getting ready to get into. So anyway, the university is sitting here looking at it like, you want us to change Rupp Arena? Like, come on, bro, get out of here with that. Another one of the suggestions was that members of members of the coaching staffs, that they take this sensitivity training or take some class, respect black people, whatever it is. And, some people aren't going to want to do that. But this is when we don't take a look at stuff like the Star Spangled Banner, when we don't take a look at stuff like the Redskins nickname for the Redskins, for the Washington Redskins. And now this situation. And like I said, it's complicated, man. It's not open and shut. it takes some listening and some talking through. So White tried to go forward with this name change and these other 9 things that to improve racial relations. And then let's get some facts out there. The first African American player at University of Kentucky was this cat named Thomas Paine in '69. In '66, the first football player who was black arrived in Lexington. His name was Natl Northington. Now, the SEC had its first African American player in '67. He was at Vanderbilt. I believe he was a football player. I didn't make a note of that. So the other part of this article by Mike Decourcy of Sporting News, he went and talked to this Matthew Maurer, who was an NBA draft and historian who publishes his work at thedraftreview.com. Matthew Maurer came out and said that, well, Rupp isn't really racist, isn't like a staunch racist. He says any man born in 1901 in the Deep South would probably be a racist. That's just probably the truth. But he said that he did some investigation into this, some research, and came back and said that, Rupp tried to sign Wes Unseld in 1964. Wes Unseld ended up going to Louisville, and it was in part because Rupp said that Unseld likely had the wrong temperament for him to go through the SEC to the road games with whatever kind of hatred and, disrespect and poor treatment that was going to be headed at him. He wasn't going to be like Jackie Robinson. Matthew Maurer also said that Rupp attempted to recruit Butch Beard in 1965, but Beard went to join Unseld at the University of Louisville. And then Maurer also said that there was some stories and some fact that Rupp had he conducted coaching clinics with the local black high school coaches. So he didn't really hate black people. So then also they had this part of the story from Dick Gabriel, who's a UK grad and a sports anchor in Lexington, who also now hosts a sports show. I don't know if it's on radio in Lexington or whatever, but he found an article that indicated where he also said that Rupp wasn't like a flat out racist. He said even back in 1950, Rupp was interested in a high school star named Jim Tucker, who was black. In 1950, Kentucky schools desegregated after 1956. Rupp supposedly helped place Tucker somewhere up north. It wasn't Temple University. Damn, I can't think of where it was. Okay, but that's what he did. Damn. But anyway, so then Dick Gabriel also went and put together this documentary in 2005 because he didn't want Kentucky basketball, the reputation to be that it was a racist institution and that led by Adolph Rupp, a well-known racist. He didn't want that to be the truth. So he did some investigation to see what was what. Well, Rupp suggested that UK leave the SEC back in the 60s and become an independent college or university because then they would have the freedom to recruit black players. And there was this gentleman's agreement in place in the SEC to not have black players. The president of University of Kentucky declined that, and and Rupp was looking at other independent programs that were Catholic schools that were doing their thing and having success. This was Notre Dame, University of Dayton, which is nearby, and then Marquette. In this documentary, Adolph Rupp, Myth, Legend, and Fact, the night before Payne, the first black player at Kentucky, before his first game, supposedly all of a bunch of boosters and friends were in Rupp's room trying to convince him not to start Payne. And then Gabriel also comes back and says, well, history is whitewashed. He said he wanted to present the facts and not just Rupp's reputation But what came out of this was like it wasn't really that Rupp was so much a racist as much as he was just in an environment filled with racism and racists, and he had to do what he had to kind of do. But like I said, it was well known that he used the N-word, according to what Derrick White, the professor, was able to dig up. So also with Rupp, then later in the article, he comes back and says, well, he was aware that Rupp lobbied for UCLA's Don Barksdale to be on the 1948 Olympic team, but Barksdale had to go through that experience with, living in separate facilities and whatnot because he was black. And so White's contention was that Rupp survived a point scandal in the 1960s. Why? So he was that powerful to overcome that. Why couldn't he use his influence and power to usher in, getting a black player on the team? And then lastly, and then White also comes back and says, well, at the moment we're having an honest reckoning and accounting. If we can't view these men, primarily men, with the kind of critical lens we are trying to tell our students they must use in their work and their scholarship and their learning, then we are doing a disservice to our students. So one other thing that to keep in mind on here was that if you remember the movie Glory Road, Rupp was the one that his team played. What was that? West Texas or Western Texas? Yeah, Texas Western. I'm sorry, which is now UTEP, I believe. So it was a chance that he could have had Wes Unseld on that team, and he wouldn't have had an all-white, starting five against the cats that were on Texas Western. But that's neither here nor there. But what I'm just saying is, and if you go read the Iowa football piece, is that whether or not they change Adolph Rupp Arena or not, it is the opportunity for black students to get there, excuse me, and understand and make up their own mind about what they think about Adolph Rupp. And do what they got to do. And that's understandable that if he came up in the Deep South in around the 1900s, before 1930, it probably is. He probably is going to have a lot of racist views. It's very likely. The thing is with the with the Iowa program, the common complaint there was that these players were basically told to act white. And I get it. If you come here, you from the East Coast or something, but this was the only way that you could get into D1 football and you in Big Ten football, big time football, you probably gonna have to go there and assimilate. But again, is it I'm not allowed to wear my dreads? Are you mad because you can't have your sweatsuit, your sweatpants hanging off of your butt? Are you mad because you can't play music that you want to hear in the weight room that has profanity in it and the N-word and all of that type of stuff? It's got to be some give and take in there. But again, a lot of these players left after a year or two. The graduation rate for black players was horrible. It was like 20%. And they got treated differently. They received harsher forms of punishment for first and second offenses, where some of the white players, their counterparts, they making it to their fourth and fifth offense. So I'm not going to solve it all in this one video, man, but check out this sporting news piece, as well as the Iowa football, man. This is complicated stuff. That's it's got to get fixed. People got to listen to other people.